I thought I'd better have a comfort biscuit. Poor old Nick Witchell, the BBC's royal correspondent, was saying today how his mind froze the other day and he couldn't finish a broadcast, had to hand back to the anchor. Well, that's nothing to the day that we're having this morning. This is Keith Hayes, broadcasting from Lewes, the county town of East Sussex. Main area for broadcast is from the town of Battle in the east of the county through to the edge of Brighton in the west of the county. Well, it's not actually, it's the westernmost point of East Sussex. And then north to Gatwick and to Tunbridge Wells, where you can take the waters. I need to take the waters this morning because nothing is going right. I really got fumble fingers, so I'm very sympathetic to Nick Witchell, who had a problem. But it's not easy, you know. I mean, he was saying that he'd memorised 1 minute 20. Well, we go at 3 words a second. That's how we count the length of a script as a rough guide. So he got to remember 200 and some odd words. And I remember doing that myself. And you had to gear your mind into paragraphs, because otherwise, if there wasn't a trigger in the first paragraph or the second paragraph, you completely forgot what that was all about. And it was easy enough to do. Just the same as me this morning, forgetting to switch on the microphone in that first try. So he's not a happy morning, not a happy ship. I can remember once, in the very early days of television broadcasting, that an American reporter was videoed, and he started off his news broadcast and said something like, and today in New York, such and such happened, and we go to Fred in New York, and nothing. The correspondent just didn't come on, so he said, well, we'll leave that for a moment, we'll go to California. And in San Francisco is Mary, and he went off to Mary, and nothing happened. And then he thought, well, we'll have another try, and he said, we'll go to Chicago, and nothing happened. And he looked at the camera and said, Mother told me I'd have days like this. Well, his mother did tell me that I'd have days like this, and it looks as if they've come true. I must be following the footsteps of poor old Nick Witchell, who has rather a bigger audience than I do. So I suppose the impact was more. He said he could have died. He wished a hole could have opened up and he could have dropped into it. And I know the feeling exactly. But the fact is, you make mistakes, you shrug, you get on with it. The next day is a new day. And that is the beauty of working in live television, is the next day is a new day, and any mistakes are quickly forgotten, and on you get with your reporting. Well, that's my rabbit for this morning, so let's just take a look at a couple of things. First of all, I suppose we can't get away from the baby, the new prince, who is going to be named Archie. And it's apparently never been used in the royal family before. Archie is now a name on its own. It is not necessarily short for Archibald. So Archie is going to be Archie, and eventually he will be the Duke of Sussex. So we've got a Duke of Sussex, we've got an heir to the Duke of Sussex. We've got a new child in the royal hierarchy between Harry and Meghan. So there you are. That's what that's all about. One of the interesting things is that I was doing a little bit of research into the first Duke of Sussex, who was Prince Augustus Frederick. He was the 9th child of George III, and who was pretty prolific, and the 6th son. And he was a bit of a sickly chap, and went off to the continent, where he was turned down for the army, or at least the family decided he shouldn't go into the army. He suffered badly from asthma. So he roamed around the continent having a jolly good time, and flirting, which is to put it mildly, with ladies of good stature, good station. And he fell in love with an Augusta, I think her name was Carr, Augusta Carr, but anyway, Augusta certainly. And they they sent Mum off to a party one night and then secretly brought in a minister and they married. But unfortunately, the law in England said that he had to have the approval of his elder brother, George, who by that time was George the Fourth. And he didn't think he would get it. So they skulked around, came back to Britain and had it reconfirmed, the marriage reconfirmed, only to find that still big brother George wasn't at all happy, and they bribed him with £12,000 a year and the Dukedom of Sussex, and that's how he got it. It was a bribe so that he would dump his wife. Unfortunately, by that time they got 2 children, which made the children illegitimate. Now, in fairness to Augustus Frederick, the Duke of Sussex, he did stay unmarried, or at least he didn't look at another woman until his first wife, Augusta, died. So then he took up with a lady called Cecilia, and once again he secretly married her. And then once again his brother said, "You can't do that. We've got a royal ordinance that says I've got to give you permission." So once again it was a marriage that had to be annulled, except that, annulled though it was, is God bless that Duke of Sussex. He said enough is enough, and Cecilia stayed as in his eyes, and he presented her and took her with him to be the Duchess of Sussex. So Meghan's got quite a bit to live up to, because she was a pretty good partner to Frederick, Augustus Frederick, and to the very end. He asked to be buried in Kensal Green Cemetery in London, so that Cecilia could be buried next to him. So he did play ball, was a pretty honourable man. Not only that, but he also was head of the Royal Society, head of the Masons, and head of one other scientific organisation. He was quite a scientist, and struck up a friendship with Gideon Mantell, who lived on Lewes High Street, and who was, to all intents and purposes, the discoverer of the dinosaur. Now think of all those programmes that we wouldn't have on the BBC if it hadn't been for Gideon, and putting together all sorts of fossils which he found on the South Downs, and saying, "Hey, hang on, these are bits and pieces of a pretty big animal." So that's a sort of relationship that we have with the Duke of Sussex. Strangely, one of his daughters appeared, or his illegitimate daughters appeared to have been at a big shindig in Lewes, for which her Augustus Frederick was missing, when his other brother took over from George the Fourth and became, William the Fourth, I think, William the Fourth, and came with his wife, the Queen, whose name has just escaped me, so I've had my Nicholas Witchell moment, and they came for the unveiling of Gideon Mantell's book, to all intents and purposes. The fact that Augustus Frederick, the Prince of Wales, was the scientist amongst them all, he was missing. But it would appear, looking at the painting, which has just been restored and is now hanging in Lewes Town Hall. That's Lewes Town Hall, not the District Council, not the County Council, but Lewes Town Hall, and it's a magnificent painting. But it's of the grand party that took place here in Lewes on the day that the King visited, and that in amongst there is a lady called Este. I think it's Emma Este, and that was the family name that she took, or was given to her, after she was illegitimised, if you like, by the King George the Fourth, who was a bit of a naughty bloke to do it, I think, because not only did he chase around with a lot of ladies when he was here in Lewes, in fact, some of them in the town hall, because at that time it was the Star Hotel, but he also took Lady Fitzherbert, whom many believe he secretly married, and he had a naughty weekend in the house at the bottom of Keir Street, the Grange, Southover Grange, where the Newtons were known to be very staunch Republicans. So there's a turn up for the books. What people will do for money and power and position. That's a very quick summation of. I spent yesterday looking at this painting because I wanted to know for an article just who was here, and I wanted to know particularly if Augustus Frederick, the Duke of Sussex, was here for that big occasion, and it would appear he's not in the painting, so we can assume that he's not, because he wasn't in any sort of disgrace. In fact, he was quite a decent sort of bloke, because Queen Victoria asked him to give her away when she married Prince Albert, and he was said to have sobbed throughout the entire ceremony. So he's a bit of a softie. Harry's a bit of a softie too, isn't he? Despite the fact that he's a very he-man and has done all the army things and climbed mountains and swum rivers and taken on piranhas and all the rest of it, he's a softie. He's as my late wife would have said, he's a sweetie. But well, so with his great uncle, the first Duke of Sussex, some 175 years ago or so. So that's a bit of a history lesson for you this morning. I'm going to leave it at that. Let's not get on to Brexit anymore. It's still the biggest mess on the face of the earth, and apparently all but 4 countries want to boot us out of the EU now because we're such a nuisance. So there we go. Until tomorrow, toodle pip.